Turn the Strands by Martin Dempsey. Chapter 9. Hanging. As the sun's rays and the increasing sound of traffic nudged Cavil into his morning routine, he made his way into the bathroom. In the shower, Cavil washed the crust and flaking blood off his right arm and found no open wound underneath. Were it not for the 6 things scampering and giggling within earshot, with one of them sitting directly behind him using the steam to catch water droplets into its leg hairs and groom itself, he could, maybe, have convinced himself that it had never popped. He felt obliged to go to the garage, not just to attend to the constantly arising practical and administrative issues that occur in every business, but because after over 30 hours of absolute insanity and events so impractical, now impossible, he felt himself get dizzy when he contemplated them. As the warm water rained down on the back of his neck, and the white noise of drumming droplets allowed him his first real moment of escape since then, he heard the faint whispers of a rational thought fight back. Perhaps this was all a hallucinogenic flashback, the longer-term combined effects of whatever it was he smoked. Was he having a psychotic break? However, the thought that maybe all of this was happening in his head wasn't particularly comforting. Cavil turned off the water, reached for a towel, and as he was drying himself off, he noticed that all 6 of them were standing in a semicircle near the closed bathroom door. The little one threw up its 2 forelegs, as if greeting after his long absence of merely a few minutes. For the first time, possibly due to the doll-like features of that one being so feminine, the gesture reminded Cavil of an infant asking to be held. Cavil laid down the second half of the jar of syrup in a saucer for them. A saucer, as he found himself worrying that one or more of them might get their feet stuck in the jar and not get enough crowding around the lid. The suckling noises made him shiver, but it took their eyes off him for a while. Their forward-facing eyes, at least. Again, as they fed, a thought arose in his mind. Stamp on them, do it now. Get them while they're not looking. Throw a towel over them and run. Poison the syrup with bleach, something. Do something. And then the lava lamp caught his attention. It was on, and he didn't remember turning it on, and glowed peach and gold, capturing and enhancing the early morning sun rays. Beautiful. He had been thinking about something. No, it had gone. 2 wax bubbles which had been suspended in the lamp at eye level slowly sank back down as his gaze followed them. His eyes were drawn to the small huddle of legs and faces near his feet. The saucer now mostly empty. The things were preening and sighing. The leggy one bunched and leapt out of the kitchen, and then again from the floor onto the wall. The creepy one backed, slinking away, head down but eyes directed towards Cavil. The large one folding its legs under it. The round one took off towards the lava lamp and started climbing up the wall towards the dream catcher which hung behind it. The low, slung one slipped behind the waste bin, head peeking around. The small blue one raised its forelegs again. This time, Cavil did something he never thought he would. He bent over and picked it up. It was cool to the touch, light as expected, but it had more feathery hair now than he remembered it having, blue and purple with almost pink highlights. It was also larger than he was expecting. Now he had his own body in close proximity. It was just small enough to sit in his hand, held out flat, if it tucked in its legs, which it did. You're bigger than I thought, but you're still pretty incy. Its 2 lidded eyes opened wide again, and Cavil noticed they were adorned with even thicker lashes than he remembered. Pretty incy, it breathed. Getting out of the apartment without them following him proved to be something of a logistical challenge. In the end, he found himself delivering a soliloquy to them about he'd be gone, but they'd be back soon, and he'd bring more syrup for them. Then he tucked a towel under the front door. Then he made a fake trip to the bathroom, just to get them there, then darted to the front door and slid out just in time to see the jumping one flying through the air towards him as the other scampered behind. As he locked the door and checked to see that the towel had indeed blocked their leaving, he heard a series of "oh" and "oh," and immediately felt a tugging to return, surely just to check what they were up to. The thought of getting more syrup seemed to help with that, though, and once that thought was established, his urge to return to the garage and manage things there reasserted itself. "How's your arm? Okay?" Precious asked as he tried to slip into the office unnoticed. The white plastic carrier bag filled with jars of syrup, jam, marmalade, and liquid egg cartons clanking foiled that plan, however. It's fine. I think it was an allergic reaction. How are things going here? Anything I should know about since yesterday? Someone was sick in the back of number 3. It needs more of a clean than he got last night. I mentioned it to Karen before he left, but it's not been done. Okay, don't worry, I'll check it out. Are the timesheets up to date? Yes, and there's coffee on if you want some. Precious indicated the pot. That's great, thank you. Can I get you one? Please, thank you. Cavill put the plastic bag under his coat and then behind that office door. Coffee, coffee, coffee. There, among the other assorted mugs of drivers, some who brought their own, placed among the other cheap plastic generic ones he furnished the garage with years ago, was a black mug with a white web painted on it. In the centre was a form which made him flinch. Not the spherical one who always seemed to be spinning, the one with a face like Munch's scream. Coffee. Not dark enough. Sooty. That took the edge off. Cavill had been running through some of his inventory. He liked to keep the garage area stocked, not only with necessities, but also with things like tissues, air fresheners, and other items to make the drivers' lives a little easier. He picked up a few items from the store cupboard to put them in the currently unused cabs that would then head back to his office to make an online order. We're living in a simulation, Precious punctuated a statement with a sardonic, brief head nod and raise of her eyebrows. Well, everything suddenly makes sense. Cavill smiled at her. Seriously? Precious nodded again towards the TV. Some scientist says it is. Bostrom. Sorry. Is it Bostrom saying that? Cavill said. No, some scientists have looked at black holes and they think a whole reality is a computer game. Oh, the hologram theory. Cavill nodded, looking at the screen with genuine interest. They did mention something about holograms. Have you heard about this? Cavill balanced his armful and rested on the desk. I'm familiar. So what is it then? I was only half listening and it didn't make any sense. The hologram theory seems to have some evidence behind it. Basically, when we look at black holes, also known as dark stars by the French, we see that electrons, including leptons, which are what light is made up of, can't escape their gravitational pull. That's what we did believe. Now it seems like they radiate leptons too. That might suggest that light, leptons, are the fundamental building block of reality, as they are emitted by the holes and somehow immune to their effects. You've heard of quarks? Well, I've heard the word. Precious had the I'm about to get explained to feeling, but she liked looking at Cavill and was happy to nod along. It wasn't spreadsheets, at least. Quarks are what make up atoms. Two quarks, two up quarks for one down quark. But electrons, like leptons, which are light, can't be broken up any further. This suggests that they're a more fundamental part of reality than quarks, and how they interact seems to be more important for how quarks behave than we thought before. That means that our dimensions may be made up fundamentally of light, and any solid 3D object made up of light is technically a hologram, hence holographic universe. Oh, wow, there you go then. Spooky. Do you believe that? Precious raised the mug he'd given her so he wouldn't have to use it to her lips. Cavill looked away, saying, it's better than the alternatives. Did they mention the basilisk? The what? Precious asked before she could catch herself. It's a thought experiment about the nature of reality. Basically, it seems inevitable if we keep building better and better computers that eventually we'll create an artificially generated intelligence, possibly a combination of programmed cells that interact with network computers like the internet. That suggests that eventually it's possible we'll end up with one or more AGIs, which have control over or a huge say in society. And this means we might end up with AGI command economies, law enforcements, etc. Like Terminator, pretty much exactly like Skynet with one additional element, right? If reality is at base light, then it can be manipulated by the same factors that alter the course of individual particles of light. gravity, nuclear energy, speed, that kind of thing. And it means that we can use that knowledge to make faster and faster calculations using computers. In fact, it means that the only difference between something like a computer game or computer program and reality is the size of the calculations and how humans choose to or are able to experience them. In order for this AGI, known as the basilisk, to come into existence, people need to think of it and attempt to create it. The basilisk would know this as it's able to see outside of the time stream, and if it gains enough power over reality to create time travel, it will attempt to foster its conception via media into the past by promoting things exactly like the film The Terminator, to hide how it will actually come about and to acclimatize people's minds to the idea. The basilisk theory is one attempt to account for where these leptons are coming from, and they're being fired through the black hole by something in the future, or the past, or the other side of the universe, or from another universe to perform quantum calculations with. This is nuts. Isn't the Terminator going to put people off the idea of building something like that? It might, but naturally, a basilisk would present itself as a very particular type of AGI, as in, well, it's not as bad as that, and we're going to prevent it taking over, or program it so that thought never occurs to it, or so we're not even aware that we exist, so maybe it's okay. So, nightmare AI films, books, and all that are its own propaganda, because it almost certainly would want to find a way around its own programming. Humans aren't programmed to want to leave Earth, but we have done. Evil regimes pull that trick all the time. Well, we're not North Korea, so it's okay we do X, Y, Z. The theory requires that the AGI functions on a quantum level of time, however, and so that also doesn't completely hold together. Why not? Because Arnold isn't walking around and shooting people. It's amazing you know all this. I did some higher mathematics at uni. The theory is uh, that people are already acting to plan for the future and that it's already affecting us. It's rewriting the past as we speak. Those who wish to be safe in the present must attempt to spread the idea and not work against it. Kind of like Pascal's wager. You've heard of that? Precious ball of face. It is a form of hedging your bets, as in, if I tell people about the basilisk, and that way I'll be in its good books, and it doesn't really matter if I tell people about it if I'm wrong. Precious looked deeply unconvinced. How would a computer in the future affect us now? That's the really cool part. Precious didn't think it was going to be. It's not just a computer. It would be an entity with its evolutionary past in computers, but it could use and manipulate quantum entanglement. It could manipulate quarks and electrons just like a black hole can, or through black holes, and thereby interact with the past and the future as if time itself didn't matter. In a sense, it would exist outside of human level reality and space time. It would exist throughout time, throughout space, and could jump in and out to manipulate reality. Basically, it would be just like a god. So how do we ever know if it exists or not? Most people never would, and it wouldn't need to act overtly in most instances. Unless it wants to do something like interact with an alternative reality or something by somehow entering it or sending its agents, in which it duplicates our physical. Several air fresheners clattered to the floor, the plastics on the lids clacking as they connected with the ground. Arthur, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. Kelvin took a deep breath and worked his face into a smile. The simulation just lagged. That's all. As Cavill scrubbed the back of the cab of number 3, he occasionally brandished one of the air fresheners like a talisman to warn off spirits. Out West was playing on the garage TV. One time, Cavill paused to use the back of his wrist to rub his nose, and he watched a scene in which Fatty Arbuckle impersonated a waiter in an attempt to win the attention and affection of a high-class lady in a restaurant. The man buffoonishly attempted to ply her with alcohol, flirted in an amateur fashion, only to be cartoonishly disappointed when his imploring her to remove a glove so he might kiss her hand revealed a wedding ring. Upon this prompt, a large, tough-looking man, clearly the lady's husband, returned to the table, and with an aggressive brandishment of his fist, scared Arbuckle off into the kitchen. The rounded figure running, his arms waving in the air, the way the chalky whiteness managed to exaggerate every expression, held Cavill's attention. After a full work-day spent actively seeking things to occupy his mind, Cavill returned to his apartment and stood before its front door. Tufts of towel still poked out under it, meeting the footmat. After several deep breaths, Cavill scuffed the door open slowly, just enough to slide in, and swung it closed behind him. Somewhere in his mind he expected to step out into darkness, an impossibly deep pit reaching beneath him, rope-width, white, silk-like cords crisscrossing, impossible to avoid, many of them coated in an instantly drying viscous adhesive. Instead, his flat opened out simply in front of him. Its bifurcated layout opened up before him. The bedroom to the left, living room and kitchen to the right, bathroom off to the left, next to the utility closet. Everything seemed normal. Then he heard a sigh, a gasp, a giggle, all of them from different areas of the flat. The cute one scampered around the door frame leading to the living room and immediately threw up her arms. "Pretty Incy!" it breathily gasped, with an inquiring upward inflection. Behind her, Cavill noticed the lava lamp had been turned on again, 2 rows of 4 globules circling one another. That drew his eye to the dream catcher, where a fist-sized abdomen with protruding spinners rotated to reveal a white face. Long, needle-like legs tiptoed into view from the bedroom. So that was where Sooty was. Now he knew where she was, he could keep an eye on her. Legs spread wide, another one leapt across the living room. On the bedroom floor, Cavill noticed that 2 of his socks were laying, with something moving within. A small head poked out, Shirilla working to rumple back the cloth. Cavill set down the white carrier bag. He felt many pairs of eyes move over him. "You're very pretty, Incy." She giggled, her Shirilla clutching up under her in delight. As Cavill turned to lock the door, he noticed the big one was on the back of the door, at eye level. It had been directly behind him, silently watching him. It shuffled its fangs. Cavill reached out his arm, haltingly, turned the bolt, and then slowly moved his hand left, closer, closer. The big one was soft to the touch, but prickly and tickly. This one had never sighed, never made a sound. As Cavill's finger stroked along its back, it lifted a leg. Cavill traced along it with a fingertip. As his finger reached its forked paw, the large one lowered it and raised a different leg, which Cavill stroked in turn. This one had no mask, no pretense of a face. The first sparked a memory of tracing a finger slowly down the muzzle of Judy, his parents' old St. Bernard. The dog had both fascinated him and scared him through his entire early childhood. Some of his earliest memories were the feeling of the whiskers poking the tender webbing of the skin between his fingers, the shock of finding fangs under the floppy jowls for the first time, which made him think of her, Judy. Later that night, after they'd been fed, Cavill had noticed the roundish webby one seemed extremely interested in the large dream catcher he had hanging on the wall over the lava lamp. As the evening wore on, it would run along the wooden threads excitedly, and then seem to get confused or disheartened, and scurry down to the rim and sit and stare at it, sometimes wiggling its forelegs as if trying to trace its threads, committing them to memory, or make sense of them. These stretches of excited activity would be followed by times in which it would sit still, hunkered down and dejected looking, forelegs drawn up to its chin. Once Cavill noticed this was a pattern of behaviour, he felt an odd tugging at the back of his mind, and deep in his chest. The clear, excited enthusiasm followed by the obvious sense of failure and dejection touched Cavill. And in the hand-sized thing's plight, he recognised his own many attempts to get something, only to be met with failure and defeat. After the nth such session of leg-wiggling and thread-bothering, Cavill approached with the tall, open-back tear from the kitchen and set it down, the back of the wall directly below the dream catcher. Cavill tapped the side of the chair. "Come on." It turned to face him. "Come on." Cavill tapped the chair again. It scampered down level with Cavill's finger, then turned to look up at him, forelegs wiggling in intricate patterns. From one side to the other, Cavill drew a line from one side of the chair and back to the far side. It scurried after Cavill's figure, leaving a strand of semi-translucent webbing. Back again in a semicircle, Cavill slid his finger back again, this time tracing the semicircle like a smile under the first strand. It scurried after, Shirley pursed in concentration. Back to the center. Cavil ran his fingertip to the center of the U thread. The creature's movements made him think of Fatty Arbuckle as it followed, and it seemed to glance up at Cavil as if starting to slightly doubt if Cavil knew what he was doing. Now hang down. There we go. Arbuckle, his face once again set in concentration, his legs splayed open, lowered himself, keeping a centimetre or so worth of distance above Cavil's fingernail. Cavil tapped the seat. To here. He landed. Both of Cavil's and two of Arbuckle's eyes met. Cavil traced from the back of the seat at a 45-degree angle up to where the first thread started, and then back down, and then up again to where the first thread ended. Arbuckle pattered along behind. Now the edges. Cavil drew the bases of little triangles in each corner of the kite of webbing. Arbuckle was starting to wave one or more of his legs in excitement as he ran. Spokes to the center. Arbuckle was now letting an almost audible hissing and haffing and hey, 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 hey as he ran. Now for the final bit. Cavil started to find Arbuckle's clear delight infectious, and what began as an exercise in resigned what the hell was ending in the joy one feels at teaching an apt pupil. Cavil traced a slow spiral from the center of the crisscrossing webs to the outer frame. As soon as Arbuckle reached the end of the spiral, he let out a breathless ha! And scurried immediately back to it and sat directly in the center. Not a sulk, nor in dejection this time, but like a proud soldier manning his post. The figurehead at the prow of the ship, the champion atop the first-place podium, awaiting his medal. There we go. Well done, Arbuckle, Cavil whispered, and reached out a finger to stroke the round thorax, which started to vibrate softly with a low purr. Beside him 8 small globules of wax, which had been suspended in the cooling liquid of the lava lamp. The 2 largest ones, directly parallel and eye level with their activity, slowly broke formation and sank back down